In the 1960s, Boeing's engineers were handed an impossible mission: create an aircraft twice the size of anything that had ever flown. What emerged would rewrite the rules of aviation forever. This is the Boeing 747, the legendary jumbo jet that redefined how humanity crosses oceans. But beneath its gleaming aluminum, lie hidden stories and secrets that few, outside the aviation world, have ever heard. How did a plane designed to be obsolete within a decade become one of the most iconic aircraft in history? And why did this engineering marvel nearly bankrupt the very company that built it? Nicknamed the Queen of the Skies, the 747 holds mysteries that stretch from concealed features to record-shattering feats still unmatched even today. And in this story, I'll reveal 10 extraordinary secrets that will forever change how you see this aircraft. But be warned, the most astonishing secret isn't the one you think. Secret number 1, the accidental icon near. 747's most famous trait, its distinctive hump, was never meant for passengers. Back in the 1960s, Boeing's designers believed supersonic airliners like Concorde would soon make traditional jets obsolete. The 747 was built with cargo in mind, engineered so the entire nose could swing open for loading. To make that work, the cockpit had to be lifted above the main deck. That temporary choice created one of aviation's most unusual passenger experiences. On the 747, you could actually sit in front of the pilots in those coveted nose seats, a perspective unlike any other airliner on Earth. What started as a practical cargo feature became an accidental icon, instantly recognizable in the skies around the world. On the 747, you could do something no other airliner has ever offered: sit in front of the pilots. Those coveted nose seats on the lower deck placed passengers further forward than the flight crew itself, giving them a view of takeoff and landing that even the captain couldn't enjoy. Think about that. While every other airliner in history keeps passengers seated behind the cockpit, the 747 turned the tables, offering an experience found nowhere else in the skies. What started as a practical cargo compromise transformed into a design icon, with the unmistakable hump that made the 747 instantly recognizable around the world. Secret. The supersonic subsonic. Here's a shocker. Even after more than 50 years, the Boeing 747 remains the fastest subsonic commercial aircraft ever built. Sure, modern jets like the 787 Dreamliner or Airbus A350 may beat it in efficiency, range, and digital sophistication, but when it comes to sheer speed, the Queen of the Skies still reigns. The 747-400 and 747-8 cruise at Mach 0.85, about 564 miles per hour at altitude. Compare that to most modern jets, which typically cruise at Mach 0.80. A difference of just 5/100ths of a Mach number might not sound like much until you stretch it across an ocean. That's the difference between landing on time and landing an hour early. And in February 2020, the world saw this power firsthand. A British Airways 747 caught a roaring jet stream over the Atlantic and blasted from New York to London in just 4 hours and 56 minutes. A record-shattering flight, nearly touching Concorde territory, all without breaking the sound barrier. Which leaves us with a fascinating question. How did Boeing's engineers in the 1960s, armed with nothing more than slide rules and wind tunnels, design an aircraft that even today's computer-aided rivals still can't outrun? Secret number 3, the flying rescue mission. The 747's true power wasn't just in carrying tourists across oceans. It revealed itself in one of the greatest rescue missions in aviation history. May 1991. Ethiopia was collapsing into civil war. In a desperate 36-hour window, Israel launched Operation Solomon to evacuate thousands of Ethiopian Jews before it was too late. The question was staggering. How do you move an entire community across Africa in just hours? The answer: the Boeing 747.LL Airlines stripped a 747-400 of its interior, turning it into a massive hollow shell of aluminum. What happened next still sounds impossible. 1,088 people packed into that single jet, more than double its certified capacity, setting a world record that has never been broken. The flight crew scrambled to perform complex weight calculations for this unprecedented load, and in one extraordinary twist, the passenger count actually went up mid-flight when 2 women gave birth on board. This wasn't just a humanitarian triumph. It proved that the 747's structural strength went far beyond what even its designers had imagined. When the stakes were highest, the Jumbo showed it could deliver miracles. Secret number 4. The analog masterpiece. Now picture yourself in the cockpit of a first-generation 747. In front of you, 971 switches, gauges and warning lights, and every single one of them mattered. This was long before glass cockpits and digital automation. Flying the Jumbo was a symphony of human skill, requiring not 2 but 3 professionals. The captain and first officer commanded the controls, while a dedicated flight engineer monitored the beating heart of the aircraft. Fuel transfers, electrical power, pressurization, hydraulics, and life support systems. Each role demanded expert training. Together, they formed a living machine, a human orchestra guiding one of the most complex vehicles ever built. The 747's cockpit wasn't just technically demanding, it created an entire culture. On long-haul transoceanic flights, crews developed rituals and camaraderie that veterans say has all but vanished in today's digital age. There was something profoundly human about the mechanical bond between aviators and their massive machine. Pilots who mastered the Queen of the Skies earned a special kind of respect. For many, earning that certification wasn't just a career milestone. It was the pinnacle of a lifetime in aviation. Modern flight crews with their computerized glass cockpits may find it hard to imagine the raw, tactile connection their predecessors shared. Every switch, every dial, every flickering gauge gave direct feedback, tying man and machine together in a way no modern airliner can replicate. Secret number 5. The audacious gamble in 1966. Boeing made what may still be the boldest corporate gamble in aviation history. They staked the entire future of the company on an aircraft that many experts insisted was simply too big to build. The numbers alone were staggering. The 747 would demand more than 6 million parts, 171 miles of wiring, 5 miles of tubing, and 75,000 engineering drawings. Nothing like it had ever been attempted. And there was another problem. No building on Earth was large enough to house its construction. Boeing's solution? Construct the largest building in the world by volume, the Everett factory in Washington state. At 398,000 square meters, it remains the biggest enclosed space on the planet even today. This wasn't just engineering. It was a leap of faith so risky that if the program failed, Boeing itself might not survive. It was nothing less than a logistical moonshot. The team that pulled it off called themselves the Incredibles, a group of engineers and builders working around the clock, often inventing solutions to problems no one had ever faced before. And the pace? Unthinkable. From concept to first flight, the 747 program took just 28 months. Today, even a far smaller, simpler aircraft would take years longer to design and certify. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The program consumed more than $1 billion in 1960s dollars, nearly $9 billion today, an investment larger than Boeing's entire net worth at the time. If the 747 failed, Boeing wouldn't just lose money, the company itself would cease to exist. This wasn't just a new airplane. It was an all-or-nothing wager to reshape global aviation forever. We've uncovered some remarkable aspects of the 747, but the most extraordinary secrets are still ahead. And before we continue, let me ask you this. Have you ever flown on a 747? Drop your story in the comments. For many travelers, those flights became memories for a lifetime. Secret number 6. The redesigned revolution. Here's a twist you probably didn't know. The 747 we know today almost looked completely different. Boeing's legendary chief engineer, Joe Sutter, originally proposed a true double-decker airliner, 2 full passenger levels stretching nose to tail. On paper, it seemed ideal. A compact fuselage, maximum passenger capacity, and a radical new look. But there was a fatal flaw: safety regulations. The FAA required that every commercial jet must be able to evacuate all passengers in 90 seconds or less. And when Boeing tested evacuation scenarios, the double-deck concept became a nightmare. Too many people, not enough exits, and impossible evacuation times. The idea had to be abandoned. But out of that problem came the solution that gave us one of the most recognizable aircraft profiles in history: the 747's signature hump. Engineers quickly realized a hard truth. Evacuating 2 full-length decks through a limited number of exits would be virtually impossible in an emergency. Safety regulations forced a radical redesign. The ambitious double-deck concept was scrapped, replaced by the partial upper deck we all recognize today. What began as a compromise became a defining feature. That graceful hump gave the 747 its unmistakable silhouette, an outline so iconic it's recognized in an instant, from any angle anywhere in the world. But the redesign carried another, even more valuable advantage. By raising the cockpit above the main deck, Boeing made it possible to build a hinged nose section that could swing open entirely. Suddenly, the 747 wasn't just a passenger jet. It could become a massive cargo hauler, capable of swallowing oversized freight that no other aircraft could handle. This adaptability gave the Queen of the Skies remarkable longevity. Even as airlines began retiring passenger models, many 747s found second lives as freighters, serving decades longer than anyone had originally imagined. The irony is striking. The feature that made the 747 legendary wasn't even part of the original design. It was born from constraint, proof that sometimes engineering limitations lead to the most elegant solutions. Secret 7, the flying canvas. Here's something few travelers ever think about. How do you repaint something the size of a small office building? Every time a 747 receives a new livery, it sets off a massive operation requiring specialized facilities, teams of skilled technicians, and almost surgical attention to detail. The first step is stripping away the old paint, layer by layer, until the aircraft's bare aluminum skin is revealed. This isn't just cosmetic. It gives inspectors a rare chance to examine the entire fuselage for microscopic cracks, hidden corrosion, or structural flaws that might otherwise go unnoticed. Only then does the real artistry begin, applying a fresh coat that not only represents an airline's identity, but also helps protect the aircraft against the elements while in service. Next comes the transformation. Painting a 747 is no small task. It requires roughly 120 gallons of paint, adding about 2,200 pounds to the aircraft's weight. That might sound minor compared to a plane tipping the scales at over 350 tons, but airlines calculate fuel burn down to the last decimal. Every pound matters, and the added paint directly increases fuel costs over the aircraft's operational lifetime. The painting process itself is extraordinarily meticulous. After a primer layer is applied, multiple coats of color follow, each carefully cured before the next layer is added. Specialized equipment and environmentally controlled hangers ensure that every curve, seam, and surface is flawless. What's fascinating is how airlines balance aesthetic ambition with practical efficiency. Some carriers choose partial paint schemes to save weight, while others turn their 747s into flying works of art without regard for the added fuel cost. British Airways' retro BOAC livery and Qantas's Aboriginal-inspired designs show how the 747's massive fuselage can become a cultural statement. Visible for miles. Secret 8, the record setter in 1989. Qantas achieved what aviation experts had long deemed impossible. An 11,000-mile non-stop flight from London to Sydney in a SOR 400. This wasn't just pushing boundaries, and it was redefining them. The 47-400ER's extended range allowed it to carry up to 63,500 gallons of jet fuel, enough to power an ordinary car for over 50 years. But even this enormous capacity wasn't originally intended for such an extreme journey. For the record-breaking flight, engineers stripped away unnecessary equipment to reduce weight and installed additional fuel tanks in spaces normally reserved for cargo. The result? Over 20 hours in the air, landing with minimal reserves, and proving that the 747 wasn't just a passenger. It was a record-setting marvel of engineering. What made this achievement particularly remarkable is that it demonstrated capabilities decades ahead of their time. The 1989 non-stop London to Sydney flight showcased potential that wouldn't be commercially realized until aircraft like the Airbus A350 ULR entered service in the 2010s. Engineers in the 1980s had already built a plane capable of feats that would define ultra-long-range aviation for the next generation. The 747 wasn't just ahead of its time. It was shaping the very possibilities that future aircraft would aspire to reach. This wasn't a publicity stunt. It was proof of the jumbo's untapped potential, far beyond what its original specifications suggested. Secret 9, the space shuttle carrier. The 747 didn't just transform air travel. It helped conquer space. For 30 years, NASA relied on specially modified 747s, known as Shuttle Carrier Aircraft (SCA), to transport space shuttles between landing and launch sites. Achieving this required extraordinary engineering modifications. NASA stripped most of the interior components, reinforced the fuselage, and added vertical stabilizers to the tail to compensate for the aerodynamic disruption of a 78-ton shuttle-riding piggyback. These 747s completed 87 ferry flights, carrying shuttles like Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour, quietly playing a critical role in America's space program. Think about the challenge. How do you safely mount a massive spacecraft on top of a commercial airliner and still maintain stable flight? NASA's solution was a testament not just to engineering ingenuity but to the robust, versatile design of the 747 itself. The 747's final NASA mission came in 2012, when a modified shuttle carrier transported Endeavour to Los Angeles for museum display. That landing marked the end of an extraordinary era, one American icon literally carrying another on its back. Ask yourself, what other commercial aircraft could have performed such a feat? The answer is simple: none. Secret 10, the cultural phenomenon. The most remarkable secret of the 747 isn't technical at all. It's its impact on global culture. Boeing reports that the 747 fleet has logged more than 118 million flight hours and nearly 23 million flight cycles, carrying around 7.12 billion passengers, essentially the population of the entire planet. Yet statistics alone cannot capture what this aircraft truly represented. For millions of people, the 747 was more than transportation. It reunited families across oceans, carried passengers to new lives in distant countries, and delivered humanitarian aid to disaster zones. It even served as Air Force One, ferrying U.S. presidents to historic summits. The 747's iconic silhouette became instantly recognizable, so much so that children around the world could draw it from memory. It appeared in countless films, advertisements, and works of art, transcending aviation to become a universal symbol of human connection. Flight crews developed deep bonds while navigating long-haul journeys, and engineers often spoke of the aircraft with unusual affection. The 747 was not merely a machine, it was a legend, a bridge between continents and a vessel of dreams. Passengers who experienced the 747's upper deck often recall it decades later with awe and nostalgia, as newer, more efficient aircraft gradually replaced the remaining passenger 747s. Something intangible is slipping away. The Queen of the Skies wasn't just a marvel of engineering. She had presence, majesty, and personality that modern airliners can hardly match. In an age dominated by algorithms and efficiency optimization, the 747 reminds us that some machines can touch our humanity, transcending raw technical specifications. From record-breaking speed to unprecedented passenger capacity, from ferrying space shuttles to evacuating entire communities, the Boeing 747 was more than an aircraft. It was a flying revolution. Each secret we've uncovered reveals another facet of its extraordinary legacy. What began as a cargo plane concept evolved into perhaps the most significant machine of the 20th century, connecting continents, cultures, and lives in ways previously unimaginable. The 747 represents something increasingly rare, an engineering achievement that balances technical brilliance with human experience. Its designers didn't just solve problems, they crafted beauty in motion. As the remaining jumbo jets slowly retire from passenger service, we're not just saying goodbye to an aircraft. We're bidding farewell to an era when flying still felt magical. The Queen may be retiring, but her reign transformed our world forever. What's your most memorable 747 experience? Or if you never had the chance to fly on one, which of these secrets surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Engineers quickly realized a hard truth. Evacuating 2 full-length decks through a limited number of exits would be virtually impossible in an emergency. Safety regulations forced a radical redesign. The ambitious double-deck concept was scrapped, replaced by the partial upper deck we all recognize today.